Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're new here, I'm your host, Dr. Jason Powers, and in each episode, we cover a variety of topics in the recovery space. Today, I was asked a few questions that I'm going to answer for you, and they are as follows. How has paying attention to your physical health, such as exercise and nutrition, played a role in your recovery? All right, this is a great question. I'm going to unpack it a little bit here. So when I got sober, like a lot of us, my exercise, my sleep, my diet were pretty poor, to say the least. When I started to pay attention to my physical health, I started to get more resilience in my emotional health and spiritual fitness. So they're all connected, but this is kind of how it went. I started doing yoga with some people that I met in recovery. We did hot yoga, which, after consulting with your physician, making sure it's okay for you to do. There aren't too many exclusions, but I've got to say that the heat actually does some good. We know that there's a lot of benefits to doing sauna, which I'll get into in a little bit, but I wasn't very good at balancing my body. I couldn't really get into the poses. And one of the problems is, and this was emotional or psychological, if you will, is that I'm very ambitious and very competitive. So I was sitting there in the yoga studio looking at everybody going into these poses and going into them rather fully, but I couldn't do it. I was trying anyway. I'd fall over and it was frustrating. And I wasn't looking forward to yoga because for me, it was a source of pain and insecurity. I'm not good enough. I don't belong. At some point, though, if you keep doing something like that, if one keeps doing something like that, I believe that you almost have no choice, right? You have to let go of the desire to be somewhere you're not or be something that you're not, and you kind of relax into it. And the way that works in the resilience world is that you really can't, or, as a matter of fact, this works for goal setting, this works for just about everything, I believe, is that you can't make progress unless you can accept where you are, because you can't move if you don't know where you're moving from. So in accepting that, I just couldn't do the same degree of posing that other people were doing in the yoga studio, but I could do what I was capable of in the moment, which for somebody that just wants to go, jumps in the deep end right away, I want to go to, 11 on a scale of 0 to 10. That was hard, but I started to make progress. And before I knew it, I had balance and I was doing the poses fairly well, I'd say. And when I had balance physically, and I'm not saying this happens with everybody, but when I had balance physically, I was able to realize that I had more balance emotionally. And the way it works is the same way. It's being triggered and, people, there's always problems, whether it's people, places, things. It's just the world doesn't conform to my will. And I know a lot of people have the same issue. So, just being able to accept the things I can change and doing something about it, and then having the peace of mind with the things that I can't change, even though they're uncomfortable, is all part and parcel of the same general theme of sort of accepting where you're at and being okay with progress the way it is, right? Spiritual awakenings, I believe, are super critical for growth. And sometimes they happen like a burning bush experience, and most often they're the educational variety over long periods of time. And when I started to realize I had balance, it was probably a year into it, because I stopped looking for it, every minute. And plus, there really wasn't a whole lot to be proud of in terms of progress, because it was slow going at first. This ties into the nutrition piece, is that I was also obese, probably morbidly obese. I'm only 5'6", and so every 10, 15 pounds is a big deal. I gained a bunch when I got sober. And when I started paying attention to nutrition, a lot happened. I mean, first of all, weight is mostly what you put in your pie hole. It's not so much, and I'm sorry for saying it that way. I don't know where I borrowed it from, but it's mostly the food that we consume. And you can't possibly exercise enough to compensate for a very poor diet in terms of weight management. We know that, exercise does a lot for weight management. It does a lot for peace of mind, for equilibrium in your body and your mind, as we kind of talked about with balance. It helps with sleep. It helps with your self-esteem, because you do look good. People like feeling that way. You get more strength. There's less falls. Your balance is better. You release endorphins. You release cortisol. You release other hormones that make you feel good and help with repair and turnover and longevity. I don't have to list the benefits of exercise. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, everybody kind of knows it's good for you. The nutrition piece is key. I have ADD, and I'm in recovery. I choose not to take any stimulant medication. That wasn't my dysfunction, but I do believe I have the type of addiction that transcends all substances. So for me, not an option. I also learned to deal with it because I got through medical school without anything. I mean, I wasn't sober, but I was sober for very long periods of time. I was able to, do well in school and all that, but it does interfere with my life if I'm not managing it through nutrition, diet, and exercise. So the thing about nutrition is that I heard about avoiding, the red dyes, other dyes, all artificial colors, and processed foods. And I just kind of figured that was nonsense. But I started to cut out processed sugars and artificial stuff, so artificial dyes and everything like that. And I noticed that my ADD was very well, almost not noticeable, especially when I had adequate sleep. Because, if you don't get adequate sleep, all bets are off. So, getting adequate sleep and avoiding processed sugar, and especially those processed food dyes. And I know it's very tough to do that because it's in everything. And, I think the American government is to blame, but so is the food industry for, buying the American government. And we are getting poisoned by our food industry. We've got to do something about it, but that's not what this platform is for. It's just, if you can avoid those, you're doing great. As hard as it is, because it's everywhere, it is a big step. So maybe take baby steps, do things that you can accomplish. Try cutting out, food dyes for a week, see how you feel. Then try cutting out processed sugar for the next week, see how you feel. Then try cutting out all processed foods for a week. Not for the rest of your life. Don't do everything at first, but those items have been like pivotal in my recovery, because, recovery is more than not using. That's just abstinence, and that's not really a sustainable lifestyle. So doing things that are sustainable are kind of what this is about. What'll add to well-being is good nutrition. So it's key. It's also important to realize that we don't need to eat as much meat as we're told, and we don't need as much protein as we're told. The more your diet resembles the blue zone areas of the world, where people are living the longest, the most disease-free, and the happiest, adopting those habits, you can create kind of little pockets of blue zones. It's important you do it with other people, because things like poor eating and obesity and heart disease and happiness, they're contagious in social networks. So, if you're going to make some changes, encourage those around you to join you, because the more people that are doing it with you, the better the success, believe it or not. Question 2, are there any daily habits or routines that significantly support your state of well-being? Absolutely. I'd have to say number 1 right now is doing a sauna. And again, disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is just a podcast. So if you're going to start doing a sauna, please see your physician first. Benefits of doing a sauna, my understanding at the moment is that it's 190 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. I've heard both. I've read both. And, I do believe that there's a benefit to 15. There seems to be a little bit more benefit at 20 minutes. And like everything else, get into it slowly. I think I've talked about doing sauna before, and I'm kind of at the point where if I mention it to anybody that knows me well, they're going to punch me in the face, because I've just been going on and on about it. So the benefits include improving oxygenation to your heart, even if you have a history of, say, heart failure. That again, you've seen your physician and enables you to do this and gives you a clear bill of health. But even if you have problems with your heart, it can improve oxygenation and it decreases the chance of having a heart attack and stroke. It improves longevity. And I'm not somebody that is looking for an extra 3 years or 4 years just to have the years, but healthy years are something I am looking for. And sauna does give you that because there's also, it's also, it's good years, not just extending your life. As a matter of fact, Norway is the happiest country on the planet, and they've got a sauna for every 2 people. I mean, of course, it's like freezing up there, but still try to make that, as long as you're cleared by your physician, try to make that a habit. It's really made a big difference in my weight. Now, losing water during sweating isn't sort of a sustainable indicator of weight loss or weight gain. But there's something on top of that. Yes, I lose water when I sweat, but when I started to sweat 4 or 5 days a week, I dropped like anywhere between 8 and 10 pounds because I've been losing weight recently, not anymore, and this is intentional, but I've been weighing myself, and I can say that there's something about it. I don't know if it just, if it decreases my appetite or helps my metabolism. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen anything about that in the literature, but it does help with your temperature regulation. Yes, doing anything hot increases your core temperature, but there's been shown to be a quicker return of your core temperature and better sort of mediation of temperatures. And I can tell you, I live in Houston, Texas, which is hotter than the sun a lot of days in the summer. And it used to be oppressive to just walk outside in my car. Since I started doing this, 190 degrees for 20 minutes that I got up to slowly, but now I've got the endurance for it. Walking outside isn't a problem. And, I hardly notice it, believe it or not. I'm not saying this is going to happen with everybody, but with global warming the way it is, doesn't seem like things are getting cooler. It might be a good tool to, make life more tolerable and enjoyable, depending where you live. Okay, so sauna is probably the best habit, or the habit that I think adds the most support to my state of well-being. The next is exercise, for sure. I've talked about the benefits of that already. It's not just endorphins and dopamine, but it's also things that get released that are important for overall health, including hormones and other proteins that we now know that skeletal muscles release. Meditation is key. I do that in the sauna, and sometimes I do that in the morning. Sometimes I do that at night. Sometimes I'll do it with walking, stretching. As long as I'm more listening than praying, then I feel like I'm in a meditative state. I think biggest benefit for people like myself and many people I found in recovery where meditation seems to be the hardest activity to do. And it really is, because the mind's a mess and it's, constantly going and judging and comparing and criticizing and all this stuff. Meditating empowers me to see the neighborhoods that my mind takes me to. And as unpleasant as a lot of them are, they're the same general neighborhoods. So that the more that I'm able to observe them, when I'm afflicted by the neighborhood of self-doubt, the neighborhood of, shame, you're not good enough, you don't belong, everybody hates you, which, by the way, I could do another episode about how, childhood trauma really plants those great neighborhoods of, shame, you're not good enough, you don't belong, you stink. And so ways to kind of combat it are something that I have to do personally, and I think anybody has to do, because it's an ongoing thing. We don't ever erase our past by doing anything in the present. Meditating is one of those things that, although it doesn't erase the past, it can help you see more clearly what's going on, accept where you are, be able to overcome it. So, the judging mind, the critical mind, it doesn't ever go away. It doesn't go away for experienced meditators either. But bringing mindful awareness to the patterns of your mind will enable you to not be driven by them, so that you can see, oh, there's the critical, voice, or I'm in the critical neighborhood or whatever. And there's a lot of tools you can do. I personally love this one where I tell it, oh, there you are. You know what? You're really not wanted right now. Come back later. Or you're crazy. We're busy. Come back later. Or, I'll pretend it's like a 3D sphere or something, and I'll I'll take it off my shoulder, like it's, speaking in my ear, and I'll sort of put it somewhere else, and I'll look at it, and it, for the time being, it can compartmentalize it, sort of not trivializes it, but it reduces it. And sometimes I read this, I can't remember where, so I'd love to give credit to whatever author came up with it, but I can make a date with it. Like, I'm busy right now, I'm in a meeting, but let's just bash myself at 4:00. You ready? You busy at 4? Okay, we'll do it then. And then obviously, if you don't remember. So, meditating, exercising, eating well. I can't speak enough about cutting out meat. I'm probably around 95% vegetarian, and I feel a lot better. And all I can say is if, you're worried about protein, I'm 54 now, and I do not take any, supplements or anything like that. Not on testosterone. And in the gym, I am as strong as I've been, except in my 20s. Take that for what it's worth. And I've never had particularly awesome physical genes. So it is something I work at. I get the benefits of, exercise, but also as you get older, you are breaking down your body faster than you're building it up. It's not true in your, up until you're 25 or so, but it does. It takes a little bit extra just to maintain. So keep that in mind, and have faith that if you're eating a diet that's as unprocessed as possible, you are feeding yourself good medicine, right? Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. Hippocrates said that. Okay, so exercise, sleep is key. Most people need between 7 and 8 hours, and I would refer you to the episode with Dr. Harold Minkowitz. Very awesome sleep expert. Check that out. And then the last thing I'd say that is significantly supportive for my state of well-being is other people. Like this complacency of I'm just going to stay in my hole. I'm going to do my thing, but it caught up to me. And, following the pandemic, I sort of was lulled into, now I'm getting out. I know I started playing pickleball. I started doing things with other and new people, and I'm happier. It takes a lot of work for an introvert, for myself, to convince myself that, the plans I made I actually want to do, but other people are your greatest resource. So cherish them, nourish relationships, and, take care of yourself and other people. All right. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.